Welcome to AF Tales. Today's story is about a man whose influencer girlfriend humiliated him for content, and the quiet way he walked away ended up exposing what she was really doing behind the scenes. As you listen, pay attention to the moment you would have stopped trying to earn basic respect. My girlfriend said, "You think you're a catch," I replied, "You'll see." Then I walked out, blocked her, let the live stream sit unanswered, and by Monday her sponsor cut ties while I found a boyfriend audit spreadsheet with my name on it. My name is Noah. I'm 29 and I fix elevators for a living here in Cleveland. On weekends, I build furniture in my basement workshop. For 2 years, I dated Tessa, a lifestyle influencer who lived for the perfect image, and at some point I stopped fitting into the picture she was trying to sell. Friday night, we were at a bar in Lakewood. Packed place, loud music, and Tessa was live streaming at the table with her usual crowd, the kind of people who talk like everything is a brand deal and every moment is content. She started giving this speech for the camera about how some people accept mediocrity while others have vision. I could feel people looking at me because it was obvious who she was talking about. For months, I'd been swallowing little public humiliations, comments disguised as jokes, side remarks about my job, eye rolls when I talked about something I cared about. But something about doing it on a live stream, like my embarrassment was just part of her entertainment, broke whatever patience I had left, so I looked right at her and said it quietly. "I deserve better." The table went silent for half a second, like even her friends weren't sure what to do with that. Then Tessa threw her head back and laughed, loud and performed, aimed right at her phone. "What?" she said, still smiling for the camera. "You think you're some kind of catch?" Her friends joined in like it was a rehearsed bit. I stood up slowly. I looked at everyone at that table, then back at her, and I said 5 words that felt calm but final. "You will see." Then I walked out. No argument, no yelling, no dramatic scene for her to monetize, just me leaving and her sitting there with nothing to react to except her own behavior. Sometimes the strongest move is not proving your point, it's removing yourself from the stage. The walk home took 20 minutes, and it felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. My phone buzzed nonstop. The texts went from "babe, wait" to "you're being dramatic" in the span of minutes. I didn't respond. For the first time in a long time, I let her words hang in the air without rushing to fix the mood. When I got home, I went straight to my basement workshop and started sanding a coffee table I'd been building. The rhythm of it calmed my head down enough to think clearly. Here's what I realized in that quiet. Tessa hadn't just insulted me once. She'd been training me to accept less respect over time. Small digs that chipped away at my confidence. Jokes that made me question my own worth. All wrapped in this language about helping me grow and upgrading my life. So I made a decision. No more fights, no more explanations. I was going to disappear emotionally and see what happened when she no longer had me as a prop. I blocked her on everything. Saturday morning, instead of sending the good morning text I'd sent every day for 2 years, I loaded the coffee table into my truck and drove it to a shop in Detroit Shoreway that features local craftspeople. The owner spent 20 minutes looking over the joinery, asking thoughtful questions about my process, noticing details that actually mattered. When she offered to feature the table on their Instagram, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Validation. Not for being useful, not for being quiet, not for being safe. Just respect for work I built with my hands. Meanwhile, Tessa was posting stories about knowing your worth and not settling for people who don't appreciate your vision. I didn't watch for long. I didn't need to. I already knew how she'd frame it. But what I didn't know yet was that her live stream from the bar had done more damage than she realized. During the stream, she'd mentioned her biggest sponsor by name while mocking me. She called them an authentic brand that would love her grounded boyfriend. She thought she was being clever. What she was actually doing was violating her contract. There was a no disparagement clause and a morals clause. And it turns out companies don't like their brand being used as a punchline while someone humiliates their partner for views. By Monday evening, she got an email. Immediate termination for conduct misaligned with brand values. Corporate legal had spent Sunday reviewing the footage before deciding. They didn't need much time after that, and here's the part that felt unreal. The PR rep who fired her reached out to me the next morning, Tuesday. They'd seen my woodworking through the shop's post, and they wanted to talk about a collaboration for a Made with Integrity campaign. I had to read that email twice, because the irony almost didn't feel real. The same brand she used to mock me for content was now asking me to represent them. That's the thing about public humiliation. Sometimes it comes back around, but not the way the person expects. Then I found out something else. A coworker of mine named Kai pulled me aside at work. He dates someone who runs in the same influencer circle as Tessa. He told me Tessa had been part of a private podcast with her friends, a secret show they called Project Upgrade. They spent months recording themselves talking about their boyfriends like home improvement projects, like the men they dated were something to fix, polish, or replace. Tessa had been doing impressions of me, mocking how I get excited about elevator safety regulations, calling my woodworking playing with blocks like I was an overgrown kid, and after I left that bar, she escalated. She started telling people I was emotionally manipulative, controlling, the kind of labels that stick, even when they're lies because they're designed to sound believable. Then someone leaked clips online. Hearing your own partner mock you in her real voice when she thinks you'll never hear it feels like getting hit while you're already down. But it didn't stop at embarrassment. The following week, I got called into HR. Anonymous emails had reached my company claiming I had a history of controlling behavior toward women. HR said they did a preliminary review, but they had to take it seriously. They wanted to discuss the allegations. I sat in that conference room, trying to stay calm while my stomach turned. Defending myself against accusations made by someone who supposedly loved me was one of the worst experiences of my life. This is what people don't talk about enough. Some breakups don't end with sadness. They end with someone trying to ruin you for leaving. Thankfully, Kai had saved the audio. He had proof of what was really going on. The podcast clips the context, the way they talked about upgrading boyfriends for content. HR listened. They documented it, and just like that, the narrative shifted back where it belonged. While Tessa was busy trying to destroy my reputation, something else was happening. The shop feature led to real commissions. People started reaching out asking for tables, shelves, custom pieces. I started donating part of what I earned to launch a community woodworking program for teenagers. That's where I met Maya. She's an art teacher. She reached out about collaborating and we met for coffee. It was the first conversation in months where I didn't feel judged, measured, or evaluated. She listened, asked thoughtful questions, laughed with me instead of at me, and it made me realize something simple. Respect feels quiet when you're used to being criticized. Tessa, meanwhile, kept spiraling online, stories swinging between victimhood and threats. Some people can't handle when a woman knows her worth. Then, hours later, funny how people think they can disappear without consequences. Her cousin Jenna warned me that Tessa was planning a heartfelt apology video, not to apologize, but to paint me as the villain who misunderstood her intentions. Then came the confrontation I was dreading. I was hosting a pop-up at the community center, showcasing the teenagers' work alongside my furniture. Local families, nothing fancy, just kids proud of what they built. Tessa showed up, live streaming, of course. She walked in and started making loud comments for her audience. "Oh wow," she said, panning her camera. "Look at this whole production." Some people really know how to ride other people's leftover energy for clout. The room went silent. Kids who had worked hard looked confused and hurt. Parents stared. And I watched her try to destroy something good because she couldn't stand my life improving without her. Then her father walked in, Mr. Monroe. He looked at Tessa, then directly into her phone camera and said quietly, "Tessa, please stop embarrassing yourself." The stream cut immediately. Tessa went white, like she'd never expected someone in her real life to say the quiet part out loud. Mr. Monroe turned to me and said, "I'm so sorry, Noah. This isn't who we raised her to be." Tessa left without another word, and the people in that room didn't look at me like a villain. They looked at her like someone who couldn't stop performing, even when it was hurting kids. And that was the moment her credibility started collapsing in real time. Then, Jenna showed me something that made my stomach drop. Tessa had been keeping a spreadsheet titled Boyfriend Gifts and Resale Values. Every single thing I ever gave her was cataloged with estimated resale prices. Birthdays, Christmas, anniversary jewelry, everything treated like inventory in a warehouse, and at the bottom was an entry that felt like someone took a piece of my chest and squeezed. Grandfather's radio, handcrafted 1950s, sold antique dealer downtown. $85. My grandfather's radio, the one he built with his own hands, the one he left me when he died, the piece of family history I gave her because she said she loved vintage things. She sold it for grocery money and never told me. I spent 2 days calling every antique shop in Cleveland until I found it in Ohio City. The owner remembered her because she'd argued about the price. I bought it back for $120. I would have paid anything. I didn't buy it to win. I bought it because some things aren't replaceable, and I needed it back in my life where it belonged. For closure, I texted her 5 words. "Meet me by the lake." Lake Erie shoreline. She showed up, and I handed her back a cheap bracelet she used to brag about, the one she bought for herself but posted like it was from me. Then I said calmly, "I bought back my grandfather's radio. You can keep the rest." For the first time I'd ever seen, Tessa had nothing to say. She tried to call me dramatic, but the words died in her throat because we both knew exactly what she did. I walked away feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not revenge, not satisfaction, just certainty. Like I'd finally said the last line in a conversation that should have ended months ago. Of course, she tried to control the narrative again. She posted a 40-minute redemption video about learning from mistakes. But it wasn't really about accountability. It turned into a speech about toxic masculinity and how her relationships were difficult because men couldn't communicate. She framed herself as a victim, even in the story where she sold someone's family heirloom. Then her desperation backfired. A former collaborator from that secret podcast released a massive dump of audio and screenshots. It showed Tessa mocking her followers as desperate, planning lies about products she never used, and discussing something they called the boyfriend audit, evaluating relationships based on social media potential and an upgrade timeline. The internet does not forgive calculated cruelty. Her remaining sponsors vanished almost overnight. The few partnerships she still had after losing the big one terminated within 24 hours. Her follower count started dropping fast. For the first time since I'd known her, Tessa went completely silent online, and while her world was shrinking, mine was getting bigger in a way that felt real. The woodworking program grew so much we needed more space. Meyer and I started art nights where her students paint and my kids build frames. The local paper featured us for building community through craft. Then I got a text from Mr. Monroe. "Dinner tomorrow. I have something that belongs to you." We met at a diner in Mentor. He apologized for not seeing what his daughter was becoming sooner. He looked tired, like someone carrying guilt he couldn't fix. Then he pulled out a leather case and opened it carefully. Inside were wood carving chisels. "These belong to my wife," he said. "Tessa's mother. She died when Tessa was 15. That's when things went wrong. My wife carved beautiful birds, always said the best gifts were made with your hands." He slid the case toward me and said, "You kept your dignity when my daughter lost hers. You've earned this." I didn't even know what to say. I just nodded because anything else felt too small. I took those chisels home and set them in my workshop next to my grandfather's radio. 2 pieces of history, 2 reminders of what it means to build something real. The program hit 30 kids, 2-month waiting list. Our first gallery show featured teenagers' art in frames they built themselves. Watching their faces light up was worth every late night and every splinter. The sustainable lifestyle company made me a long-term spokesperson for craftsmanship content, but the real closure came unexpectedly. 2 weeks ago, I got a handwritten letter from Tessa. Not typed, not polished, not designed for social media, just raw words about losing everything and being forced to look at who she'd become. She wrote about her mother's death at 15, how grief twisted into a desperate need for validation through followers and brand deals. How she'd started therapy, how she was trying to become a person instead of a performance. She apologized for the radio. She called it unforgivable. And then she wrote one line that hit harder than anything else in the letter. "You were right to want better." She ended it by saying she hoped I found peace, and she was sorry it took losing me for her to start becoming better. I didn't respond, not because I wanted to punish her, but because she was right. There wasn't anything left to say. The story had already reached its ending. Maya saw the letter later that evening when she stopped by with art supplies. She read it, handed it back, and said, "Good for her. It takes courage to apologize without asking for anything back." That's one of the things I love about Maya. She sees complexity in people, even after they've done real damage. She believes in growth, but she doesn't confuse growth with access. We worked on frames that night for the next exhibition. The theme was building, making something solid out of rough material. We listened to my grandfather's radio humming softly in the background while Maya painted delicate borders and I measured wood. And I realized something that surprised me. This was never really about Tessa. It was about learning who I am when I stop shrinking myself to fit someone else's idea of what I should be. It was about discovering that quiet work, building something real, satisfies more than any dramatic confrontation ever could. Last week, a quiet girl in the program named Sam finished her first big project, a jewelry box with intricate carved details. When she showed the group, her face lit up like she couldn't believe it. "I made this," she said. "Like I actually made this myself." I recognized that look. The same one I had when my grandfather first taught me how to fit wood together perfectly. The moment you realize you can create something lasting. Standing there in my workshop, surrounded by teenagers' projects, with the chisels beside the radio, I felt complete. Not because life is perfect, but because it's mine, built with my hands, filled with people who value the real me. Tessa's letter took courage, and I hope she becomes someone better. But I also learned a hard truth. Some apologies aren't about being forgiven. They're about becoming someone worthy of giving one, and I deserved better. But better wasn't something I had to demand from her. It was something I had to build for myself. One careful cut, one honest boundary, one day at a time. Tomorrow is another art night. Maya's bringing new paints. The kids are excited about learning advanced framing techniques. My grandfather's radio will hum softly while we create something meaningful together. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming who you were meant to be all along. Lesson 1. Public humiliation is not content. It's a warning sign that someone values attention more than your dignity. Lesson 2. If respect only exists when the camera is off, it isn't real respect. Lesson 3. When someone treats gifts, memories, or family heirlooms like inventory, they are telling you exactly how they see people. Lesson 4. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's the healthiest boundary you can set. Lesson 5. Healing gets easier when you replace performance with purpose and surround yourself with people who don't need you to be someone else. So what would you have done if your partner mocked you on a live stream in front of a crowd? Would you walk out quietly, or would you confront it in the moment? And if you found out they were tracking your gifts like resale inventory, would that be an instant ending for you?